Are you someone that really struggles to target your rear delt? Are you someone who maybe whenever you're doing rows or reverse flies, all you feel is your traps and never the rear delt? Don't worry, you're not alone, and there's a really simple fix that I'm gonna tell you about in this video. So we can really solve this issue by just understanding two very simple things. One is the anatomy of the rear delt, and then two is just the physics of how to load it, because a lot of people I think are confused about this. So first things first, the rear delt attaches along this ridge. It's called the scapular spine, and it runs down and attaches to the back side of the upper arm. So what it does is it pulls the arm backward like this, which means that in order to stretch it, we bring the arm forward. But here's the problem that a lot of people run into. They only really ever bring their arms to this position, and when they get to this position, i.e. when the rear delts are more stretched, the rear delts are rarely, if ever, significantly loaded. Why? Well, just think about any kind of row, right? The load in a row at this point is just pulling the shoulder girdle forward, i.e. it's loading the traps and the lats. It's not really loading the rear delts. If you think about the way in which people commonly execute reverse flies, something similar is true. Okay, so what do we do about this? Because a lot of the common exercises that we think are for the rear delts don't really target the rear delts when they're in their strongest position, i.e. here. And not only that, but most exercises actually don't even fully lengthen the rear delt, because to fully lengthen the rear delt, the arm would actually need to come across the body, across the face, toward the other shoulder. Okay, so what does this mean practically speaking? Well, when we bring the arm across the body in this position, how might we load the rear delt significantly in this position? Well, it wouldn't be with a row that's kind of pulling the arm diagonally in that direction. It would actually be with something that's pulling the arm inward toward the body, because if something were to pull the arm upward toward the face in this position, the only muscle really that can actually move us out of that position is the rear delt. The traps have no ability to do it, and the lats really don't have an ability either. All right, so now let's actually look at an exercise that we can do to accomplish these goals. So my favorite place to do it is with a cable. So if I just let this video play, right, what you're gonna notice is what we just went over, right? The arm comes across the body. So here is the most lengthened position, and don't worry, I will show other angles of this. So the arm comes up and across the body this way, and the cable, i.e. the resistance in this particular case, is angled pretty much directly backward. I mean, it's kind of diagonally backward. You can play around with the specifics of the resistance direction and how you like to actually orient it. But what you'll also notice is that there's a slight angle of my upper arm from up to down, right? So when I go back to the beginning of this motion, get my little marker out here, my arm is not moving perfectly horizontal. Some of you might like a more perfectly horizontal type thing, but as a starting point, what I recommend is angling the arm upward and sort of diagonally again across the face. Why? Well, because you're gonna have the most room to pull your arm across your body, or really to allow the cable to pull your arm across the body, again, so that you can come around forward and in reverse of the direction that the cable is pulling you. So here's kind of what it looks like. I was just doing this for demo purposes, so I was, there's a little bit of a faster tempo here, a little bit less controlled. When you do this for the first time, be conservative with the load. You're probably not going to be used to loading this position in the way that, it's significantly loaded. And if we go to another angle here, just to show you all something else about this exercise, what you'll also notice is the fact that I've got my opposite arm planted as I'm doing the motion, right? So keep in mind that this other arm is gonna play an important role in your ability not to just get turned this way by the cable, right? Because the cable is pulling your arm across your body, and imagine you had just 1 billion pounds on that cable, what would it do to you? Well, it would rotate your trunk in that direction. So as the cable is pulling the arm this way, which is great because again, it's really isolating for that more lengthened position of the rear delt, what it's also doing is it's also trying to turn your entire trunk with you, right? And so a really simple way to prevent that is if you can just find a way to plant your hand, stagger your stance, lean forward into it. Just find any way to basically isolate the motion, keep the motion at the glenohumeral or the shoulder joint specifically. So that's pretty much it. The only other thing that I would say is make sure that you're actually allowing your shoulder blade to move. And so it's kind of subtle to see, but it'll be obvious once I point it out. Watch what happens as I get to this more lengthened position, right? So this right here, go back to my marker, sorry about that. If If I go back to this position right here, watch this bulk of my armpit, right? This is my lat muscle, and this is basically a representation of how I'm allowing my shoulder blade to move as I come around toward that lengthened position. So watch what happens as I get to the short position, right? You can't really see anything there. My shirt's kind of in the way, but as my arm stretches across in slow motion, boom, you see all that bulk, right where I just circled. You see all that bulk coming out and around. You need to allow that to happen because the shoulder blade is going to be the bedrock of support for the actual upper arm, and in this case, the rear delt specifically. So as you let your arm stretch across, really allow whatever is going to happen mechanically with your shoulder blade to happen, and just make sure that all the while you are paying attention to pushing away from the cable, right? Because if you just kind of go flaccid and you let your biceps just get smushed into your face, right, that's probably not going to feel too good. Again, especially if this is the first time you're doing this motion, right? So again, the key points: allow that upper arm to come upward and diagonally across, allow that shoulder blade to move, keep that opposite hand planted so that you don't get turned away from the load, or in the direction of the load rather. And then in addition to that, just make sure that you're careful about using less load than you probably can on this exercise for the first time, just so you don't overdo it, because it's probably going to be a novel position for most of you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you want to learn more from me, listen real quick. I have a beginner biomechanics course. It's basically structured for someone who's never learned about any of this stuff to begin with. So you need no experience to learn anything about it, and it's currently running at a 70% discount. You can click the link in the description to see more details about my beginner biomechanics course, and I'll see you all in the next video.